What's up guys, it's Mindset Performance Coach Adam Carmenter here, and in today's video you're going to learn how to train poker athlete skill number 7, which is stress mastery. Now if you want to become a poker athlete, you need to train your mind and body for elite poker performance. In order to do that, you need to identify the key skills that you need to work on and train them in a systemized way until you get to a higher and higher level. There are 6 skills to train for the mind, and there are 2 skills to train for the body. Today we're transitioning to the first skill for the body, which is stress mastery. If you guys want to learn more about the skills to train for the mind, go for my channel where I've shared 6 key skills to train and how you can take steps to start doing that straight away. Alright, so today we're focused on stress mastery, how to master the stress response. Alright, I'm going to share with you 4 key concepts to get your head around. I'm then going to give you some visual representations so you guys can, if you guys are visual learners, it will do well for you. Then I will give you guys 5 action steps you can take to start building more stress mastery into your days. And make sure you stick around to the end of this video where I'll be announcing some spaces that are coming available for my new Poker Athlete program where you'll take these concepts to a whole other level. Alright, so if you're interested in this video and you want to go further with these concepts, make sure you stick around to the end of the video for the announcement on that. Alright, with that being said, let's dive into today's video, stress mastery. Now, being a poker player is almost like signing up for a highly stressful life. Alright, one thing's for certain, you're going to have bad beats, you're going to lose money, people are going to annoy you, you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be a highly stressful environment overall. Alright, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you're going to have to learn to tolerate a high amount of stress. The reason this one is skill number 7, stress mastery, is because rather than trying to get away with less stress in your life, you need to build the ability to take on more and more stress. So stress mastery is how to navigate a highly stressful environment like poker and perform at a very high level. Alright, it's a skill of the body because stress is very often very physical. Alright, we have a very physiological response to stress, but the mind and body are interconnected. Alright, so even when you're dealing with the body issues, the mind is a powerful tool as well. You guys will learn about that as we go through this video. Now, the first concept I want to share with you guys is the autonomic nervous system. Now, some of you guys might be familiar with this, some of you guys might not, so I'll try and give you a quick overview of how it works. But basically, we have a nervous system going through our body, and it has different branches, right? Almost like different activation modes. One of those branches is called the sympathetic nervous system. To visualize that, visualize like a gas pedal going on the accelerator, and this is what the fight or flight response. This is when you're activated, you're angry, you're responsive, but also you're in a heightened state. All right, so imagine heightened energy, more blood flow to the brain, more blood flow around the body, you're highly activated. On the flip side of this autonomic nervous system, we also have a parasympathetic activation. All right, and parasympathetic basically is the brake. It's the brake. It's slowing things down. It's much more relaxed. And it's in a lower activation state. All right. So when we're going through our lives, we're triggering different branches of our autonomic nervous system. If you haven't got a regulated, so you've got a dysregulated autonomic nervous system, what you'll find is you very often end up very highly activated and very lowly activated over and over again, all right, in these kind of peak zones. So you get annoyed by stuff, you get frustrated, you get really on edge, all right? So that's basically the sympathetic branch getting pushed, all right? You're always on the gas pedal, all right? If you're someone with anger problems or you know someone with anger problems, almost always they're overly activated on the sympathetic branch, all right? We're going to come back to this, but the first thing you need to know is as you're going through your days, things are triggering this response system. And this happens subconsciously, all right? So it's a subconscious system that's responding to your environment, all right? So as we're going through our days, we're taking information for our senses and we're getting triggered. Didn't like that. Ooh, activate. And it's basically a survival mechanism. It's trying to keep you safe in your environment and make sure you're prepared to take on what's happening in your environment. Because poker is a stressful environment, very often we end up on the heightened state of activation, which is the sympathetic branch, too often, which we'll talk about as we go through. All right, but we'll come back to that. But the next concept I want to talk about is widening your range. All right, not your 3-betting range, not your calling range, widening your stress tolerance range, right? The amount of situations you can put yourself in and handle stress, all right? So to visualize this, imagine this between these 2 lines, so if you guys can see it, I think you can. Between these 2 lines is going to be your optimal zone, all right? So I'll just draw a quick little representation. All right, so imagine you're going through your days and things are activating you. All right, so this is your kind of activation levels or your sympathetic or your autonomic nervous system's activation. All right, Now, you want to be in between these lines, which is your optimal state. That just means you can handle stuff, all right? Things aren't bothering you too much. You're in a good state of mind, good energy levels. You're able to handle the stresses, all right? I'm sure you guys can like relate to going through your days and things just not bothering you. Whatever comes up, I can handle it, all right? That's in between these lines, all right? You want to be in these lines. However, some things will throw you out and annoy you, frustrate you, anger you, all right? And they put you over here, all right? And on the flip side, sometimes you end up lowly activated, you're disengaged, you're bored, you're autopiloting, you're not really engaged in what you're doing, all right? And these are this low activation state, all right? Now, as we're going through our lives, we don't want to create this range very narrow, all right? We don't want to have a narrow range here, all right? So some people who are very easily triggered, either on the high end or they find themselves in low states as well, they have a very narrow range. And the range is basically the amount of situations you can fit into that bandwidth, all right? So there's only a small number of situations that go in between these two lines, the bottom and the top. That means you have a low range, a narrow range. On the flip side, if you can handle a lot of situations before you respond either heightened reaction or a negative, you've got a wide range, all right? So as you're going through life, you want to widen your range so less and less things affect you, all right? So up here, this is the fight response. Overactivation is going to lead to a fight response. You're going to want to be overactivated, angry, rage. You're in a heightened activation state. And this is the flight response. You're generally passive. You want to get away from stuff. And these are survival mechanisms. All right? So just to summarize that concept, as you're going through your life, you want to build a wider and wider range of situations that you can handle. I'm sure you guys can agree that would be a pretty good skill set, right? To have a wide range of situations that you can be optimal in. All right, so this is optimal, by the way, this middle bit. And that means you can handle it in a good way. You're at your best, you're able to, whatever comes with it, you can handle it well, all right? So again, we'll come back to these two concepts in a second. But we want to transition now into the next concept, which is activation levels, all right? And this is awesome to visualize, and when you get this concept, it's like, things start to make sense in terms of how to navigate the stress response. So imagine you're playing your best poker, right? When you're playing your best poker, you're in like a peak state. Now, you're not underactivated, you're not like lowly activated, you're not like bored, disengaged, but you're not super hyped up, you're not like highly energized, super going for it. Some of you guys might be, but most often it's somewhere in between, right? And it's been shown over many studies over many years that peak performance doesn't lie on the low end of stress and it doesn't lie on the high end of stress. There's a sweet spot in the middle, all right? I'm calling this stress response like activation. You're activated at a good level, all right? So it basically looks like an inverted U, all right? It looks like this. All right, we've got stress along the bottom, and then we've got performance up the middle, all right? Sorry, down this side, all right? And in the middle is where your performance is best, all right? So this zone here, this zone right in the middle is where you're performing at your best. It's not a low amount of stress, it's not a low amount of activation, it's a medium amount, right? It's like an activated state, all right? So we need to know, how do we get here? How do we get into this activation zone, all right? We need to get familiar with all the activation zones around it as well, all right? So the way I look at this is, it's understanding your physiology. When you're in this state, how does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your mind? All right, you create a profile for what your peak state looks like. If you don't know what your peak performance state looks like in terms of how you feel activation levels in your body and also in your mind, you can't get there. You can't get there because you don't even know what you're trying to get to. All right, so you've got to create a good profile of what our activation looks like. And for some people, for myself, for example, I'm on the higher end of activation for my peak state. Other people are much lower. All right, so you've got to create a profile of what your peak activation looks like. Then you've got to realize that things are going to happen that are going to either put you over your activation here. So we're going to go overactivated, or things are going to throw you off and make you underactivated. All right, so somewhere down here. All right, and this is where people make a lot of mistakes when it comes to managing stress. All right, very often we get told to lower stress. We get told to try to create less stress in our environment. But in reality, what we've got to realize is at certain times, certain situations are going to trigger us to be overactivated. And if you look, as soon as you're overactivated, your performance starts to drop. We need to identify our overactivated state and be able to bring ourselves back up here. All right, so we've got to bring ourselves back up into a more peak activation state. All right. The goal is not to necessarily eradicate stress; it's to push ourselves back into a different activation zone. So get familiar with how an overactivated state feels for you. All right. It's going to feel a certain way in your body and in your mind. But understand, like, you're 100% going to be into going to overactivated states. All right. But it's anger, frustration, it's annoyance, and you're not playing your best poker. And on the flip side, when you're underactivated, generally this is autopiloting, it's disengaged, it's being tired. And here, we need to get ourselves back up this way. All right. So when we're overactivated, we want to come down, and when we're underactivated, we want to come up. Very, very different states of mind, very different responses that you're going to have to use in order to do that. So if you're thinking as you're going through your day, pay attention to how much time you're spending in an overactivated state compared to an underactivated state, and ideally, you want to know how long you're spending in this kind of peak state. All right. Once we're over here, all right, like we're fully overactivated, one that's massively overactivated or massively underactivated, these are like really dangerous states. All right, and generally, yeah, you want to do something about those. You want to quit sessions, you want to leave. Here you want to basically lower your stress response, and you want to like relax completely. Here you want to either recover or you want to fully activate yourself. But the main thing to play around with is this bandwidth around the performance, because you're going to spend a lot of your time as a poker player slightly underactivated, slightly overactivated, and realizing, wait a second, I can control this. And this is all about your physiology and your nervous system, all right? How activated is my nervous system? How energized is my body and mind right now, all right? And what things throw me off and throw me under, all right? Yeah, we'll come back to this in a second. And then we need to know how to train our stress response, all right? So as I said at the start, being a poker player is stressful. There's a lot of stress coming your way. So you don't want to get really, really good at lowering stress, because that will do well when you're not playing poker. You want to be able to handle more and more stress. And to do this, you need to do something called stress inoculation training. All right, inoculation means you're preparing yourself for it. You're adapting to it. All right. So think of Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs Hell Week is a great example of stress inoculation training. Those guys go through hell, like it's Hell Week, and as a result, they become mentally tough through that, and they train the stress response. All right, that's like one of the most extreme versions you can use. You guys don't need to go that far, but you need to train yourself, train your physiology in order to take on more and more stress. The good thing is the stress in general, is a very flexible approach. It's a very flexible response of the body. All right, by that I mean the stress response of jumping out of a plane and the stress response of playing poker are very similar, all right? I mean, different degrees of heightened, but it's very similar to how the physiology works, all right? It's like, stress, your body produces certain chemicals, your nervous system fires in a certain way. Now, because that's the case, we can train things outside of poker. We can inoculate ourselves with stress training so that when we come to the poker tables, although it's completely different, playing a poker hand compared to doing like a cold shower or Wim Hof breathing, very different. But then when we're at the poker tables, we're actually more equipped to deal with the stress because we've got accustomed to the feeling, all right? So stress inoculation training, in its summary, is basically you consciously, by your activity, create a stress response in the body. You train your mind to be very calm under that stress. So imagine jumping in a cold bath or a cold shower, doing some fast Wim Hof breathing. You deliberately heighten your stress in the body and you calm yourself with the mind. And you tell the mind it's calm by calming your breathing or by being very relaxed in that state. What this does is it tells the body and mind create this kind of signaling. So when you're in a heightened stress response in the body, the mind can stay calm. Now imagine you're at the poker tables and you have a heightened stress response in the body. Your heart rate's going, your palms are sweating, everything's beating really fast. You have a heightened response, but the mind stays calm. The mind stays calm. Would there be any problems? There wouldn't, would they? You'd handle it. If anything, you've got more blood flow, more activation, you play better. All right, this is why the best players and the best performers in sport in particular are better under stress because their body is activated, but their mind is calm. For most people, when the body gets activated, the mind freaks out. Oh, body's activated, and the mind goes into this fight or flight response. You have two activated, two underactivated, all right? But with stress inoculation training, you can train yourself to be in overactivated states and still be in a peak state, all right? So you widen, if I could widen this graph, you widen this range, especially this top end, and you allow yourself to take on more and more stress going forward, all right? So to summarize the concepts, understand we have an autonomic nervous system and it has two main branches. One is kind of the gas pedal, which is the sympathetic nervous system, which means go, 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 heightened activation. If you push that too far, it becomes frustration, anger. Then we've got the brake, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's going to make you more disengaged if you push that too far, but certainly a more relaxed state. Then we've got to widen your range. All right, so you want to be able to take on more and more stress. Stress inoculation training is a way to widen your range and over time, especially over the top end. We need to know our activation levels and realize there's a peak state of activation for playing poker that you need to be in. If you're overactivated, performance suffers, so you need to bring yourself back. If you're underactivated, your performance suffers, so you need to bring yourself back up. All right? It's really understanding that. Pay attention as you go through your days to which states you're in. We're now going to go into 5 steps that you guys can take in order to start working on mastering your stress right away after watching this video. All right. So, 5 steps. Can't see the 5, but it is 5 steps. And the first one is rate how much stress you can handle. How much stress can you handle? Be honest with yourself. Is it low amount of stress? Is it a medium? Is it a high? By this I mean, how often do you find yourself getting annoyed? How often do you find yourself getting frustrated? How often do you find yourself lowly motivated, disengaged? All right, either of the extremes. If you can handle a lot of stress, very often you'll find yourself in a very level state of mind most often. All right, so how much stress can you currently handle? This is giving yourself a kind of baseline kind of rating so you know like, okay, I'm doing well at this, or I'm not good at this. All right, if you're in the high category, there's still a lot of work to do to get higher and higher. But understand that if you're currently low, there's more work to be done on this, all right? A lot more work to be done. Generally, the lower you are, the more dysregulated your nervous system is. Your body's sending out a lot of false alarms, and the mind's getting freaking out as a result, all right? And there's a whole, you need to train your nervous system to do that. All right, so are you mostly underactivated or overactivated? All right, this is really key to know for yourself. Very often when it comes to stress, we get given a very black and white approach, like everyone's the same, but it's very different. All right, some people they struggle with stress and they end up very underactivated. You find yourself struggling to get out of bed in the morning. You find yourself bored. You find yourself playing poker and you're autopiloting, just clicking buttons. All right, that's when you're overstressed, that's what your response is. On the flip side, other people when they're in a stress response, they're overactivated, they're agitated, they're angry, they're annoyed. That's me. When I push my stress response too far, I'm mainly overactivated. I rarely spend time underactivated, almost very infrequently, unless I've hit a massive wall in my life. I generally go to overactivated. So I need to get good at controlling my overactivated state. But for some of you guys, it'll be the opposite. You'll spend most of your days underactivated. Low levels of alertness, low levels of engagement. Yeah, whatever happens, but you're not engaged, all right? But it's still part of the same stress response. You're too much on your parasympathetic nervous system. You need to train yourself to activate. You need to reactivate yourself. If you're overactivated, you need to get good at widening your range of activation, but also bringing it down a bit. That's what I've had to get good at over the years. A lot better, still working on this. But when I get overactivated, how do I bring myself back down? All right, when you're underactivated, how do you bring yourself up? Okay, next thing. What can you do to increase your activation? If you're underactivated, so you're the guy who's bored, you're disengaged, you're lowly activated often, almost on a weekly basis, what can you do to increase activation? All right. Now this stress mastery is a skill for the body for a reason, because the body is the tool to increase our activation levels. You can change your activation with the mind by focusing on your goals, by getting clear intention, by using things like gratitude. But the fastest way to change your physiology, the fastest way to change your activation is with the body. All right, so when you're underactivated, how can you increase your activation? Pop quiz, and it's going to be movement generally, right? You're going to move yourself, right? Moving the body and also using your breathing, all right? There's many things you can do with the body with movement, but also breathing fast, all right? So if I want to increase activation, quick inhales, slow exhales, but generally a lot of oxygen going in. I'm oxygenating the body and I'm increasing activation with the breath, all right? So that's a physiological tool. Also movement, doing some push-ups, going outside, doing some runs, anything that can increase activation through movement of the body, all right? It's going to increase blood flow, it's going to get me more activated, all right? So you want to train yourself, every time I'm underactivated, how do I increase my activation, all right? So start with everything for yourself, what you can use. What can you do to decrease activation, all right? If you're like me, who generally struggles with the overactivated state, more than the underactivated, I need to decrease activation, all right? Now this is a tricky one, because when you're in an overactivated state, often the advice is slow down your breathing, do all like the meditation, and that can work, it has its place, but often you're too activated, all right? You're too activated. So often we need to actually channel that energy somewhere else, all right? So we're overactivated. Very often, again, movement works, explosive actions. Doing some sprints works really well for me, doing some push-ups, doing something explosive to use that energy, to direct it in something else. Then once you've used that excess energy, you can then start to calm yourself, all right? But you need to decrease activation of the mind and channel that energy somewhere else, all right? Especially as you get really overactivated. If you're angry, you're raged, you want to channel that into something else. If you're just slightly overactivated, you can use that extra energy by checking with your body to channel it into your performance. We'll go into that at another time. We have to get into the program to learn that one. All right, but then do something this week. To increase your stress tolerance, all right? So remember, stress inoculation training, putting your body into a stress response, feeling the stress response in your body, all the blood flow going, the sympathetic nervous system going bum, 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 heart rate pounding, and then keeping the mind calm. How do you do that? How do you keep the mind calm when the body freaks out? You calm down your breathing. You go slow inhales, but in particular, slow exhales. And you watch the mind trying to freak out and train it back. One way to do this, for you guys, if you want a quick strategy for this, cold showers. Have a cold shower, 2 minutes, and try and keep your breathing really, really calm. Keep it really calm. What you'll find is, it's hard, because the body freaks out. And when the body freaks out, the mind is used to going, oh, the body's freaking out, well, I need to sort this out, and the mind instantly freaks out. But if you calm your breath down, you watch the mind trying to freak out, and keep bringing it back, you can get very, very good at this, all right? 4 or 5 times a week, I do a sauna for 15, 20 minutes, and I use this exact training to watch my body freaking out. I'm going to explode because it's so hot, and I calm my breath, especially towards the end as it's getting really hot. I then go into a cold plunge pool for 2 to 5 minutes. I do the exact same thing, all right? And my body freaks out. I actually go head under the water very quickly, and then sit there. It's really, really cold water at the gym I go to, and I watch my body freaking out, and my mind tries to freak out, and I slow my breathing down. And I'm training myself over and over to be comfortable under stress. Why? Because this is what you want to do. As a poker player, you want to be comfortable with the body freaking out and the mind staying calm. All right, so pick something to do this week that's going to put you into a stressful scenario, and you're going to consciously keep the mind calm and train that response. All right, so we covered a lot today. All right, 4 concepts, all right, which were the nervous system, and how the nervous system is basically the gas pedal and the brake for your responses. We talk about widening your range so you can take on more and more stress over time. We then talk about activation levels. Now, there's a peak activation level for yourself. Understand if you're over or underactivated and navigating back to a peak state. And then we talked about stress inoculation training, which is what you can do away from the tables to, over time, widen this range. You can widen this range by training the stress response. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. Don't be stingy with your likes. And if you're really wanting to take this concept to the next level and train this skill along with 7 other skills, I'm going to be taking on some students to train through the Poker Athlete Program. So if you click on the link below, put your name and email address below, you will be one of the first to get access to apply for the Poker Athlete Program, which I will be selecting people for very soon. So go through that process, and if it's a fit for you, I'll be in touch in order to arrange a call to get the next steps in motion. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Look out for the final part of the Poker Athlete series, which is coming very soon.